Used to be a raving pinko. He's now considered one of America's most provocative and conservative satirists, author of bestsellers, Parliament of Whores. You heard that right. Give War a Chance, another book of his. And All the Trouble in the World, P.J. O'Rourke. And this one, take a look at the new one. This is a great title. Age and Guile Beat Youth Innocence and a Bad Haircut. And that's him. That's him in both pictures, P.J. O'Rourke. When did you decide what you were going to be when you grew up?
There were a couple things that happened to me. Most significant was probably that I got a paycheck. I got a job. I got a job and I got a paycheck.
My daughter, that changed her mind immediately.
It's remarkable what happened.
She thought it was welfare when she was growing up in the home. You know, then she realized there are deductions.
There were deductions.
Was that a shock to you? Do you remember a moment when you went from left to right?
I would say that's probably was it, as much as anything. There were a couple things that happened to me. I got a little underground newspaper that we ran down in Baltimore, got taken over by Maoists. And we got held prisoner and put through consciousness-raising sessions because we weren't sufficiently left-wing. And we're going, how can you be more left-wing than we are and not fall off the planet? But no, we weren't bombing things. We weren't shooting people. We weren't sufficiently committed to the left. So that was weird. And then there was a day when I was walking down the street and I caught this little reflection of myself looking much like that. And I thought, who's that overage jerk still dressed like a hippie? And it was me. Yeah. So that was a moment. But I think it was really the thing was getting the paycheck. I got a job for $150 a week. Got paid every 2 weeks. $300. This was more money than I'd had in one place since Abby Hoffman was a pup. And I thought, oh boy, $300. I'm rich. And I got that paycheck. And it was for $165 net. After you took out federal income tax, state income tax, local New York City income tax, pension, you can imagine how interested I was.
Yeah, you were worried about your pension
at age 23, health stuff. Yeah. And I go, wait a minute, I've been demonstrating and fighting and screaming and yelling and making a general nuisance of myself for the sake of socialism, to promote socialism, to get socialism in America. Since I was in high school, I've been doing this. And here I get my first job with a capitalist company, I get my first paycheck, and I realize we've got socialism. Mm-hmm. The system I hate, that I have been protesting against, is a socialist system. I got to sit down and think about this.
You grew up in Ohio, Buckeye.
Toledo, Ohio, yeah.
Yep. I used to go up there for Mid-American Conference games when I was at OU. You went to Miami of Ohio?
I went to Miami. We were in the same league
then,
yes,
that's right.
And we are again now in a certain way.
Right. Did you grow up left-wing? Were your parents conservative?
Oh, no.
You were rebelling against
absolutely.
Your parents.
No, I came from a very conservative family. In fact, when I was in college, I came home with my hair down to my butt and a big red fist on the back of my jean jacket, and my grandmother took me aside and she said, Pat, I'm worried that you're turning into a Democrat. I said, Democrat? Grandmother, how can you say that? Lyndon Johnson is a fascist pig. He's conducting this horribly unfair war in Indochina and killing all these innocent Viet Cong, and he's murdering Negroes in our inner cities, and he's a fascist pig. Of course I'm not a Democrat. Democrats are every bit as bad as Republicans. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Maoist, grandmother. And my grandmother said, at least you're not a Democrat. Just as long as you're not a Democrat.
Do you think that the system's getting better or worse? Are we doing better? Because I assume because Newt and the boys took over that things might get better. Are you seeing any signs of that?
We're doing better. We're not doing as well as we should, but we're definitely doing better.
Where is the movement, so to speak, off the track, off the trolley?
Well, I don't think it's so much a movement off the trolley, although I do worry a little bit about getting into the high horse stuff, the family values stuff, the telling people what is and isn't right. I always figured that anybody who talks too much about family values never met my family. You know? Values like daytime drinking and whooping on the stepkids and stuff.
You drank pretty heavy.
I still do my share.
You do your share. Yeah. Drugs, you were into it.
Not only did I inhale, I was down on all fours in the shag carpet trying to get that stuff.
trying to get whatever was left.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Now those days are gone, right?
Yeah, you get over 40, you have to pick your poison. And the thing I found out about, cocaine was just out of the question, and heroin that turned you into a dead jazz musician, and marijuana makes you sensitive. And what sensible middle-aged guy wants to be more sensitive?
Why do most people think conservatives don't have a sense of humor? You're one of the funniest guys on the planet, and you read some of your stuff. I laugh out loud when I read your stuff. But they always paint conservatives as mean-spirited, hate minorities, not easy people to get along with, no sense of humor. Isn't that the general sense of it in the press?
I think there's a confusion here on a couple of counts. People confuse conservative with just being a grown-up, because they think of being liberal or left-wing as being the wonderful, innocent, the Byronic child, the romantic child, the Keatsian, Shelleyan infant in touch with infinity, trailing clouds of glory and that kind of stuff. This whole romantic nonsense of primitivist nonsense that children are somehow better than we are and better than the adults, and the adults are stodgy old stick-in-the-muds. And so they see conservatives, because conservatives are always saying, look, freedom's great. We want freedom, but with freedom comes responsibility. If it's not a responsibility, if the responsibility doesn't go with the freedom, that's not a freedom. That's just something you stole, if the responsibility doesn't go with it. So we see not only do liberals not understand that, they don't understand that ideas have consequences, but they don't even understand that actions have consequences. Oh, I killed a guy and I'm really sorry, so you can let me out of jail though because I'm really sorry, and I went on a talk show and I explained why it was the terrible feelings of hatred and frustration that welled up into me due to my bad childhood that made me kill him, so it's okay now, all right? I can go home.
Yeah, there
Actions
is some
don't
of
have
that.
consequences.
What about political correctness? What's going on with that?
Let me
finish that.
one other little thing about that, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Also, the people mix up comedy with show business.
Okay.
Comedians are traditionally very conservative because comedians make fun of anything that's different, new, which makes them small c conservatives. But show business is where many comedians work, tends to be a very liberal profession. And it tends to be a liberal profession because, it's more fun publicly to be liberal. We all know that. It's more fun to say,
Well, you can be for everything.
yes, I care.
Yeah,
I care.
I
Oh,
care.
I know you care, but you only care as much as you
You
have
don't
to.
have a ribbon
I
on, so
really
you can't care as much as
no,
I do.
I care more than you do. Yeah, I do.
care. I care.
That
as
makes
much
me
as
a
you
better.
do. No, I care about trees. Do you
No,
care
no,
about trees?
I care about you. Sure, you care about trees, but you only care about when you're cutting them down. I care about them before they're even grown.
Do you care about whales?
Whales, I have them in my home.
See? All right, you
you
beat
can
me.
do
You're
that.
more conservative than I am, obviously. But go to political correctness. We're going through a thing where I remember America when we had freedom of speech. Now, freedom of speech wasn't always good because you said insulting and terrible things from
Never
time to
pretty.
time.
It's never pretty.
Sometimes it's not pretty.
Yeah.
Sometimes freedom of speech is not pretty.
Yeah.
But is political correctness better?
Well, freedom of speech always entailed, real freedom entailed responsibility. And the freedom was to say anything you wanted. The responsibility was to get punched in the nose for having said it.
Right, exactly.
When we move out of the kind of society where people get punched in the nose for saying bad things, we move into the kind of society which has to start banning the things that they can say. Because there's no, in my day, if you said something about a hard harp or a Mick, or a Pollock or a Bohunk or something, you got, well, this is
somebody deck you.
3 times.
Three
Broken
times.
3 times.
I'd stay away from that word if I were you.
Yeah, definitely. But really, what political correctness is the desire for cheap virtue. People want cheap virtue. Now, say I want to do something about the racial problems we have in this country. I might want to give a scholarship. I might want to go down and teach in inner city schools. I might volunteer for something. But how much easier just to say African American and feel very virtuous about myself?
So you're saying that people choose political correctness because they feel better about themselves.
Sure,
as
and
opposed to-
cheap and easy. Cheap
Right.
and easy. All you have to do is say the words. Say empowered.
Empowered. We'll be back. The devastating wit of P.J. O'Rourke and his new book. We'll be back right after these messages. Stay with us. We're back talking with political humorist P.J. O'Rourke, whose new book is called Age and Guile, Beat Youth, Innocence, and a Bad Haircut. Tell me the difference between Jimmy Carter as president and Bill Clinton as president. Because Carter said we had a malaise, and Clinton the other day said we're all in a funk and he's going to get us out of it.
It worked so well for Jimmy.
Yeah, right.
There's a strategy, Bill. There's a strategy.
Everything else has failed. We're in a funk. What's the difference between those two guys as president?
Jimmy Carter knew what he was being a sanctimonious twit about. and Bill Clinton has to ask his wife, and that's fundamentally the difference.
Basically
I mean, Jimmy had a lot of things that he believed in. They were stupid things for the most part, but I'll give him that he did believe in them. Whereas Bill Clinton doesn't have anything that he believes in, just stupid things that he does.
Right.
And says.
How do you read the I got to ask this question, and I'm sure your answer is guessing like everybody else's this time, but you may have a take on it. Republican field this year. Are we going to see any surprises, or is it?
We'd better. I can't say I'm too crazy about it. I'm a Graham guy, but I can't say that Phil has not caught fire as a salesman for conservatism. And the thing about conservatism is you have to sell it well. It's a tough sell. Liberals can get up there and say, vote for us. We'll make you taller. We'll make you richer. We'll make you smarter. We'll get rid of the crabgrass in your lawn and all.
And you'll be a nice person.
And we'll cut your taxes on top of that because we're going to get all the money from the rich.
Yep.
Hey. And you'll be a nice person because you'll show that you care about the trees and the whales and the poor. Or a conservative has to get up there and say, my fellow Americans elect me and I'll do less for you. Government is only good for certain things. It's great for wars and highways, but a lot of other stuff it doesn't do so hot. Even educating your children it's not too good at. There are limits to what we can do. We have to be realistic. You can't just take all the money from the rich because they won't be rich anymore, and then when you go to take the rest of the money, there won't be anybody to take it from, and so on. It's a tough sell. Reagan could do it. Graham so far has not shown that.
How much did Graham get hurt because he gave money to his brother-in-law to make a film? I mean, the press played that for several weeks.
I don't think that really even,
Didn't make a.
I don't
didn't
think
do
that.
anything?
I mean, when you got Bill Clinton running around with every cocktail waitress in Arkansas, I don't think that Phil's secondhand investment in what didn't even appear to be, to my mind, a movie that wasn't quite dirty enough.
What about feminism? I have had feminists on this show. I've debated them. The only, I would have to put Joan Baez, maybe Judy Collins as exceptions because they had very strong sense of humor. A lot of
Joan
feminists,
Baez, I don't know about Judy Collins, but she is sui generis. I mean, she's
the
one leftist that said, "Look what happened in Vietnam. This is shameful. Look what happened."
I have to defend Joan Baez because first of all, she's been true to whatever she believes for years and years and years. She's never sold out. She's got a great sense of humor. She's a great performer. I went down to see her at the Bottom Line here, and she's a great performer. But often, and I won't make a broad brush here, but often feminists do not seem to have great senses of humor. Is that true?
Well, it's probably because they're on duty. I mean, when they're standing around the house with their buddies telling guy jokes, they're probably as funny as the next person. But when we see them, they're on duty. And their job is to sell indignation. Without indignation, without a feeling in their constituency of being put upon, if they've got to sell their constituency on being losers. They've got to say, women of America, you have been oppressed. You are losers. You are victims. You do not have control over your life, and that's why you have to elect us or our allies to help you. So much of big government, so much of the liberal worldview is based on creating victims. It does two things. It gives you a voting constituency to expand the range of politics in life, and it also, victimhood, by relieving people of responsibility for their situation, also relieves them of freedom. It's an antidote for liberty. And liberty and liberalism, as we know, don't go together very well.
What about another thing we hear a lot about today, multiculturalism? What's your take on it?
Well, it's one of those things.
What does it mean?
It doesn't mean anything. I mean, we all have always had multiculturalism in the United States. At my house we had Irish food. More's the pity. I wish my family would have gotten over that, different groups that have different music, different dances, different stupid things they did at their weddings. We've always have that. But here again, the left is working to create divisions and constituencies in a society, because if you can get a society all divided up into different warring factions, then only politics will be able to solve this. People will feel that they can't solve it on their own, and there'll be more reason for politicians to go to work.
So a lot of these movements are really created by people who want constituencies.
They want constituencies, sure. Yeah.
Okay, we're going to take a break. P.J. O'Rourke, humorist, author, wrote this book, Age and Guile Beat Youth and Innocence, and a Bad Haircut. We'll be back. guy's written a whole bunch of good books, but if you wonder where he came from, he also worked for National Lampoon, right? For a long
I was
time.
even editor-in-chief.
Editor-in-chief.
I worked my way up from low puns in the loading dock to up through
To
witty
serious
riposts, to eventually became editor-in-chief.
Let me throw some names at you and have you react to them. Tell me what's going on with him. Jesse Jackson.
Well, Jesse seems to have faded a little bit from the limelight, doesn't he? I mean,
He got nice to Colin Powell. He trashed him for a long time, and then in the last few days, he's kind of gone nice on him.
Do you think that Jesse's that he's worn out that act, the showing up at every single thing that goes wrong, hurricane, mudslide, PLO negotiations?
You see him occasionally in New York jumping in front of tourist cameras. He thinks it's an event, and he'll get in there.
Yeah.
Actually, Jesse's been a guest on the show, and I must say I've known him for years. And but Jesse's greatest chance now is to become a Republican.
I couldn't agree with you more.
If Jesse Jackson said, "Look, folks, the stuff I was for years, look, I really believe it and all that, but the fact is, we're in an age of responsibility."
Yeah.
This guy would be a giant superstar overnight.
The other thing that
Have a
really
real
struck me about
chance.
him, and I suppose this is totally unfair, but his suit, the one time I saw him in person, his suit cost more than my car.
Well, I did ask Jesse once how he felt to be a millionaire, and he didn't want to discuss that. He wanted to talk
I have a
about
nice
corporate
car,
life.
too.
Do you?
That
Okay,
suit cost
let me
more.
ask you about old B1 Bob Dornan, the conservative firebrand.
He's
Take
kind
no
of
prisoners.
kind of a fan of mine. He told me
right?
one time that I met him, and therefore I speak no evil of people who are fans of yours, but do remember in a general sense that just because somebody is crazy and a little on the illiterate side doesn't mean they're wrong.
Ross Perot.
Crazy and illiterate and actually is wrong.
And short.
Yeah. Needs to listen to the Prozac, doesn't he?
Yeah, I don't think he's getting his. I think somebody cut the supply off.
Yeah.
But he came out and wanted a third party. Where are you on that third party?
Hate it. We don't have that kind of political system. The United States comes very close to having a nonpartisan political system. We have two broad tendencies, and as you well know, a lot of overlap in the middle.
Right.
We don't have these European political parties where you got a card you carry in your wallet, you got rules and regulations, dues that you pay, you can be drummed out of the thing. And hence we have managed to avoid some of the worst excesses of Italian-type politics, Israeli-type politics, even the politics in England.
Yeah. Don Imus, famous radio guy. Do you do Imus's radio show?
I have been on once or twice, not too often. I like Don Imus a lot.
I do too. He trashes me occasionally. I used to do his show frequently, but then the White House tried to get me fired because I made a joke about it, and so my network recommended to me that it was probably not in our best interest that I do this
to hang
this
out
show.
there. Yeah.
And ever since then, Don's been trashing me, but he's been a guest on the show, and he's pretty good. I mean, when he's on, he's good. When he's not on, he's terrible.
There is something for and this was always the pleasure at the National Lampoon, the utter anarchy, complete mockery of anything that moves, the total court fool. But that fool has to be smart and has to be in some ways mature, even if totally irresponsible.
Right.
This is the problem with Howard Stern is it's like dealing with the world's brightest 12-year-old boy.
I was going to say 14, but maybe 12. Yeah, but Don is actually an adult.
He is an
underneath
adult.
all that,
Yeah.
there's some adultness there. But he got angry with me because I suggested that all these parodies that he does, a parody of Rush Limbaugh, in which he tries to paint Rush in a bad light, and that's his own anger getting out. Well, I suggested that to Don, and he's been mad at me ever since. And he brings it up every once in a while, so I know he feels guilty about it. You can always tell, can't you, when somebody feels really guilty?
Yeah.
They know you've hit the nerve.
Yeah, they get mad.
They get mad.
They get
Yeah,
mad.
they get mad. Okay, Pat Buchanan seems to be having a revival this year and doing pretty well. Where are you with Pat?
Well, I don't agree with him on certain things. I think he's too much of a social conservative for as complicated a nation as we are. And also, my libertarian instincts tell me that you want to back off. You let social tradition take care of as much of that as possible. But I think it's important for people to understand that Pat is not a fire-breathing dragon. This is a very nice guy.
No, he's a nice man. And
religious
everybody,
man,
yeah, there's no
decent man.
Yeah.
And I think that sometimes his Irish-like, his rhetorical abilities carry him away. I remember him standing up in front of the Republican convention saying, "Man, mortgage our country for snakes and bugs." And it was a wonderful speech. And
That's a great speech. He has a little bit of the background of Tony Danza and you. And, I mean, Pat's actually punched out a cop once, but
that I never did. I'm too
I
little.
never did that. I don't think Danza's done that either. Although he's a few other people that he's punched out in his life, but he's matured too. I mean, Tony told me that have you matured?
Well, yes, but then I had so far to go.
So it's taken a while. Is that the
yeah? And
deal?
I mean, any degree of maturation would have been major for me. So.
What is good about coming from the state of Ohio? The governor was on this show about a week ago, and there is something special about Buckeyes. I get people bug me about pushing Ohio, but Ohio is a great state. Seven presidents from Ohio?
Yeah, something like that.
A lot of them were semi-bozos, but there were some good ones. Yeah, Harding was not a great president.
It is absolutely, completely, dead on normal.
It's normal.
It's normal.
It is normal.
Round on the ends and high in the middle.
Okay, good luck with your book. This is the book here, folks. Thanks to Tony Danza. Thanks to you, PJ. Come back and see me sometime.
Will do.
We'll see you again next time on Straight